Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Jo Malumba. I am the Education Program Assistant at the Ecological Society of America. And today I'm just going to introduce the Science Communication in the Parks information session. This is brought to you by the Ecological Society of America and also the National Park Service as well. This information session is just going to give more background on the program and give you the opportunity to ask questions as well. So for everyone who's just entering, in the chat, feel free to share your name, affiliation, and institution that you attend, and your favorite national park. For the agenda today, we're going to go through a bit of introductions. I just introduced myself. You're going to get a chance to meet the rest of the team. We're going to go a little bit over Science Communication and Parks program details, and at the end, we'll have time for a quick Q&A. So I'll go over again. Hi, I'm Mary Jo Malumba. I'm the program assistant for the Science Communication in the Parks program, and I'm going to give the team an opportunity to introduce themselves as well.
Okay, you want me to start, Mary Joy?
Yep, Teresa, you can start for us.
All right, cool. All right, hi everybody. My name is Teresa Murad. I'm the Director of Education at ESA and also one of the leads in the program for the SCIP program. I don't know if John is here, so maybe Brian?
Okay.
John is here. Cool. All right, John, you're up.
My name's right on it. Hi, everyone. ESA's membership director in comms and marketing and other stuff. It's the co-lead with Teresa, although, from my standpoint, the primary interest is in the development of good communication training content, which is a big part of the program. Okay, now it's Brian's turn.
Sounds great. Hi, I'm Brian Mitchell. I'm an ecologist with the National Park Service. I'm based at the University of Rhode Island. I work for the Northeast region of the Park Service. I am a research coordinator for the North Atlantic Coast Cooperative Ecosystem Studies Unit, as well as a science advisor for my region.
Thanks. And hi, everyone. My name is Jaspreet Denoda. Pronouns are she, her. I'm calling in from Ohlone Land in California. And I am the project manager for the SCIP program. So what that looks like is I really run the monthly meetings with the fellows and meet with fellows monthly to support with progress and development of science communication skills throughout the fellowship year. Thanks. Back to you, Mary Joy.
Great. So we're just going to go over the origins of SCIP.
Oh, I think I'm up. So the origins of SCIP go back a bit over 2 years now, when my region of the National Park Service received a substantial amount of funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and that helped us with several natural and cultural resource initiatives. We suddenly found ourselves with really a once-in-a-generation opportunity to support forest resilience, restore grasslands, protect salt marshes, seagrass beds, and freshwater systems. We also had the opportunity to look for new ways to assess the vulnerability of park cultural resources and infrastructure to a variety of stressors. So while we were thrilled about this chance to protect and restore the resources themselves, we knew that those efforts would be a lot more successful with good science communication. Science communication lets us connect with parks to operationalize the management practices we're developing. It helps us inspire others to expand our work, and it demonstrates how we are preserving and protecting the parks to the public. So meeting those communication goals was going to take more than the press releases and basic web pages that were planned for our projects from the start. So we reached out through the Cooperative Ecosystem Studies units to find a partner who could assist us. The CSU program has 19 federal agencies and over 500 universities, colleges, nonprofits, and local partners that provide research, technical assistance, and education to support federal agencies. So it was a good source to look for help. The Ecological Society of America was one of several CSU members who responded to our request for interest, and they proposed a fellowship program. They thought that they could provide ongoing training and support for the fellows as they work to complete 2 science communication products during their fellowship. We really liked this proposed approach, and the substantial expertise that ESA would bring as a professional society was another bonus, as well as their strong interest in science communication. So we asked for a full proposal from ESA, and SCIP was born. Next slide.
Okay, I think I'm up next. So why is ESA interested in SCIP? And you see that quote there. I think probably all of you, most if not all of you, have heard it. Science isn't finished until it's communicated. So we can't just do research and then just sit on it, right? And so that's the part that as a professional society we feel the need to help our community to strengthen those skills and the science communication skills so that the science reaches more people. And of course, it's also a opportunity to deepen our relationship with NPS. We've had over the years, started building up a relationship with the National Park Service through some of our other programs, such as the SEEDS program. If you're interested, we can talk about that later. But one of the things that we are looking at is, how do we strengthen that partnership? And as Brian mentioned, we are part of the Chesapeake Watershed Cooperative Ecosystem Studies Unit. So we really wanted to see if we can contribute to this network, the CESU network, and this came as a great opportunity. And I think one of the things that we were realizing, as I mentioned, and that's why the quote was so important, is it's not just doing your research, putting together a paper, and then publishing it, right? So yeah, you might be communicating with other scientists, but that knowledge has also to be extended to the broader public, and really it's a matter of meaning making. Right. And we also realize that it's a growing field. Can people really relate with the information that's being shared? And so we felt that this is really vital that we begin to be more systematic about the way we transfer that knowledge to the community. So, one of the things that we're doing, I think John mentioned earlier, is a bit of a professional development. And so, yeah, this opportunity that we have with this program helps us to do that. I'll actually also put a plug in for our communication and engagement section. So ESA also has a communication and engagement section. And so those of you who are really interested in SciComm and not yet a member of ESA, that might be one of the reasons to join. Yeah, so back to you, Mary Joy, for the next part.
Going to go over a couple of components of SCIP. So the program throughout the fellowship, each fellow will develop 2 different products which address the science topics for each of the audience of your selected project. If you're selected as a fellow for the National Park System. Before, we actually, like Teresa mentioned, with skill development, we actually have a webinar series that have trainings for different science and communications trainings on the ESA website, underneath science communications in the park. You can actually see the past descriptions for the past webinars for the other fellowship. Throughout the program, you'll have monthly check-ins with Jasjeet, the project manager, who will just monitor your process. And if you have any questions, you also get mentoring from a SciComm professional, as well as just different assignments to help you develop your product throughout. So if you have any questions or any ideas, you'll have different people you can lean on and ask questions for. We also offer small travel awards for 2 participating sites, peer collaboration. You'll have different fellows that you can ask questions and lean on and learn from. And you also receive a $3,000 stipend in 2 installments. The first one will get when you finish your first product, and then the second installment will come after you finish your second product.
Are there requirements for this program? So as Mary Joy alluded to, you'll meet with me monthly, and we'll meet in 2 different ways. So we meet as a cohort, and our cohort size is often pretty small because it allows for more direct mentorship and then also a lot more support. This is a pretty exciting program, and it's so important to us that each fellow who goes through the program is like well supported for the learning that they get to do on this journey. We'll also have monthly one-on-one check-ins. So the difference between the cohort meetings bring together like the other members of the fellowship. It's an opportunity for a lot of peer-to-peer conversation. And then the one-on-one check-ins allow us to go a little bit deeper in terms of like project design, working out communication challenges, any of those growth and development pieces for a specific project. In addition, there's client meetings with the National Park Service liaison. So one thing that's really unique and special about this fellowship is it's really like you're working at an interface. You're working with the National Park Service, you're working with ESA, which is a nonprofit, and then you have your support from me as well. So fellows really are like learn to balance kind of the communications between all these different parties and what it means to really be that steady force in this kind of trifecta. We also have assignments with due dates roughly monthly, and these are milestones for developing the products. Everyone here who's on the meeting is already a professional, right? But the assignments allow us to move through the fellowship year at the same pace and with similar guidelines. And I think having that consistency allows each fellow to really develop their unique voice as a science communicator. And there'll be just some brief moments to reflect as well on progress and growth throughout the year. Thank you, Mary Joy. So talking about the timeline for this project as well, often orientation happens in September, and that'll be the initial discovery call with the National Park Service liaison, the particular individual or individuals you'll be working on for the project. In October, the project proposal is due. December, first product is complete, and then in May, the second product is complete. So it's a really kind of a gradual release throughout the year, but the first like fall chunk of time is really, we'll have a lot of touch points at that time. And there's 6 professional development series, and we're still aligning on what those will be for this year. But like Mary Joy mentioned earlier, if you go on our website, you can see what they were for the past year. And that gives an idea of like what kind of training you can expect with respect to science communication skills for this session. Thank you.
John, would you like to say a few more things about the professional development series?
A few more things about professional development series. No, this basically is, we consider it a opportunity to hone in on some like particular skills that are of relevance to the cohort, but also to the clients, in this case being the individual park folks. Like they're looking for comms products around like a particular issue within their park. I'm not going to say like from like last year, because I already kind of, it's not that I've forgotten, it's just like I'm going to screw up things. I'm not a scientist. But like let's say, like for instance, if they're looking for like a public facing education thing at a beach restoration site somewhere, then the Jazz Jeet and the fellows who are assigned to that, working with the client, will determine what is the need there, and then they'll develop the products. But that training is going to be in place to make sure that those products are good, and if necessary, then it'll actually be to train the fellows in how to really make that product a reality. We looked at a very broad sort of conceptual topics around comms last year, and that was pretty effective. And I think that the first cohort of fellows got a lot out of it. But we did see some requests for some more specificity in the training, and so we'll get into that. And the program itself is designed to be something that's there to benefit the fellow, as well as the end product being good to benefit the client, so that everybody here actually are the winners. Now, what we do though is we actually make this available through ESA's general professional development offerings to the public. So while the fellows themselves will be in a session training for that 60 minutes, you're gonna have your follow-on time with Jazz Jeet afterward, to talk about what your lessons are, what your takeaways are. But there will be 30, 40, 50, 100 other people attending as well during that live session. So don't feel like like being crowded out or anything like that when the session itself is happening. If we're just presenting this content, we want to make it something that other people can benefit from. But you're still going to have that opportunity to have that one-on-one and small group time with your mentor. And I believe if necessary, even some of the presenters themselves make themselves available to talk through things a little bit more with the trainees. That's in general how that stuff works.
Great, thank you, John. Back to you, Mary Joy.
Thank you. So thank you for joining us for this session. I know we have a few questions already in the chat, but if you have any questions, feel free to post in the chat or raise your hand so you can be called on and you can ask the question now. But I guess we'll start in the chat. We have one question that asks, do we need to have access to an NP to participate? And
Brian, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, no, you don't. We've actually had a number of fellows this year who were virtual, and that worked pretty well.
Yeah, and also there was a question before that about how many fellows we will accept. Well, it's 6. Yeah, we have funding to support 6 fellows. That's
Right.
we have one question that asked, in the application last year, there was a section to put an example of past SciComm products you have produced. What kind of examples are you looking for?
Mary Jo, you can answer that, right?
So of course, we're not expecting you to be experts, but I think any example of a different any project that you use to communicate a different science topic, whether that be for a public audience in the classroom would be acceptable. It's a pretty wide range. I don't know if Teresa wants to add on to that.
Yeah, I think what we're looking for is sort of not just your typical scientific poster, which we probably can get a sense of, but if you have done anything else other than sort of a scientific talk, so that would be great. Yeah.
So I know there's a question about applicants outside the United States can apply. I know for the application you have to be a US citizen, but can those who are located in different countries apply if they're a US citizen?
Brian.
Yeah, we went back and forth on this, right? So you can apply. Do keep in mind, though, that we do need to have the ability to talk to all the cohorts at the same time periodically. So if you're overseas, like substantially further east and west than the U.S. time zones, that could make it pretty difficult to participate, as well as to coordinate with your NPS liaisons. If you happen to be, in South America or something like that, where the time zones are fairly similar, that's a lot easier. And again, so there's no restriction on being outside the US. Just do keep in mind the logistics.
Yeah. So again, U.S. citizens and or permanent residents of the United States are able to apply. And there are actually other requirements. I should mention the eligibility. So one is either you are a member of ESA or you come from one of the CESU network institutions. So you have to be able to say that you come from one of these. You don't have to have both, right? So that's something that we are looking for as well.
I know one person mentioned if they need to add a portfolio of SciComm to their application of SciComm products that they produce. I think one is the requirement on the application, but feel free to add more. We would love to see your work.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Just, one is enough for us. But if you have a couple more, we welcome whatever samples you want to send us.
Definitely. And sometimes if you can, demonstrate a breadth of different types of products, that helps.
Yeah, we've had people in the past, send links to videos that they've created in the past, things like that. I mean, do not try to upload a video, whatever it is, right? If you have things like that, that has a lot of bandwidth, just send us a link.
Is there such a thing as too many samples?
Probably. I mean, we don't need that many, right? It's just a sense of what you're capable of. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe max it at like 4 to 5. Again,
Just
focusing
a
on that goal.
reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Nope, I was done.
Okay, I just wanted to say, like, a reminder that this is really for developing professionals or aspiring experts, right? So if someone's in a position where, like, this is something that's their career already, that is awesome. And we really want to help kind of that next generation of science communicators develop like their sense of self and their confidence. So we might prioritize applicants who are more aspiring experts instead of established professionals in the field.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So again, we're not looking for expert quality, right? We're just looking at potential, actually. So don't feel shy. Don't feel like you can't apply because you haven't done a million SciComm products. Okay, so yeah, we're not expecting that.
We have another question about asking if the previous years are a good reflection of products, SciComm products is a good reflection of what might be made this year, or can it vary strongly depending on what the national park site needs?
I think it's the latter, and I'll just speak for myself. I always encourage fellows to really try and maybe suggest some new creative ways of communicating. Story maps are very common, and we'd like some variety beyond that. And not that story maps aren't a problem. They can be a great way to communicate, but we would love to see folks bringing their creative selves to this and coming up with some novel ways to communicate.
We have one question about can current or past government employees apply? I don't know if there's any restriction on that.
Current employees, you should probably talk to your ethics office. I can't give an answer on that. Depending on what your job is, it may be totally okay. But you should definitely check with ethics. Past government employees, I'm not aware of anything that would prevent a past employee from participating in this.
And I see Jamie has their hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, it's Jamie. I'm
Jamie.
curious about the type of product. Does it need to be something that can live either as text-based or live on the internet, like video, or can it actually be something that happens physically at a park site?
Great question. I think it depends on what the parks need and what they're looking for. We've had one fellow who did a project that is intended for park site use, right? So maybe Just G, you can talk more about that. Actually, you're closer to the fellows than I am.
Sure, I'd love to speak on that. So, one really interesting thing that we get to work on in this program is even considering like accessibility, right? So, if we do a physical product, that's awesome, but maybe there is an online component that allows someone with like different learning needs to still access the product, right? So, for example, we had one fellow who created a sign in like a physical informational sign to be placed at a visitor center. And that product was incredible. And for her second product, she also supplemented with a digital piece that would allow someone, for example, who needs things to be read aloud, like through a screen reader, that would allow for that accessibility. So it's kind of a both and. I think it'll also depend on like funding sources, because I know sometimes there can be challenges with like funding to get something printed at a park. So working with like a friends of the park, sometimes they are able to support with that. And I think those sorts of details, Brian, you might be able to provide some more context. But yeah, Jamie, I'm thinking it's a both and.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
And again, that question about how many fellows will be chosen, 6. So that is the plan. Okay.
We had a question about the time commitment. I don't know if the team wants to go over the amount of hours that if you're selected, you're expected to put on the project.
Just do you want to answer that one?
Sure, thanks, Teresa. Yes, okay, so for the time commitment, we estimate about 20 hours per month, but I think it really varies. There might be some months where it's a lot less, and there might be some months where it's much more. One thing that's worth noting is because many of us are based, remotely from the site that you're working, the hours kind of look different. So consider beyond just hours, like the mental bandwidth, right? Because it's maintaining email correspondence with a liaison, maintaining meetings with me and fellows, and then also honoring time outside of all of that to work on the project. So while hours wise, it's about 20, I think sometimes it may feel like a bit more because it's another slice of something that's now in your life. Um, but I do think that in terms of like how much workload there is, that is something we're really anticipating clearly communicating at the beginning. So 2 products for the course of the fellowship, assignments monthly, meetings monthly, and then what each project entails is going to be mostly up to the NPS liaison and the fellow to work out the details of how many interviews are required, what does the feedback look like with the liaison, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Great
I
question.
think we are very aware of everybody's time, of the limitations on everybody's time, and frankly, even the liaisons from NPS, right? And so we try to actually encourage both parties to not be over ambitious, again, we're not expecting, um, you know, full time, right? Commitment here to polish things that's flawless, or but we do want something that we will be generally proud of and be able to use, right? So Brian, you might want to say a few more things, but I think we try to say, let's come to a happy medium here where we have we're meeting some standards, but we're not expecting, again, like a top tier professional, effort here, right? So, and again, thinking about creative ways that you can produce something for within 20 hours a month, right? So basically about 5 hours a week, right? So so you have to think about that, right? What is involved in, like Jasjit said, that there's also, the back and forth of emails. There's drafts that you have to produce and getting feedback from the park service, and so, and I think also to be aware that there are both internal and external audiences. So not everything will be for the general public, let's say, right? Or for families or something like that, right? It can be actually sometimes within the National Park Service, they need something for their own park managers. Maybe Brian, you might want to kind of elaborate more on this aspect of the question.
I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, yeah, we're definitely um, trying, this program is really encouraging development. So we're definitely all about helping people learn as they go. At the end, we want something that's going to be usable for our purposes, and that could, there's a variety of things that can meet that. So I think there's a lot of flexibility here and a lot that's kind of discussed with your liaison as you kind of scope out the specific project you're going to be developing, or product rather.
And I see that we had a question, I think both you, Teresa, and Brian kind of touched on about the audience of the different SciComm products. And I think I'll try to answer this one. It is, I think it depends on which project description that you pick and which site and which liaison want. They'll tell you which your intended audience will be. I don't know if anyone wants to add on to that.
I think that as you're looking through the descriptions, I believe it is listed
Yeah.
the anticipated audiences, and that is potentially subject to change, but it's a pretty good indicator of what the liaison's looking for there. I do see a question about, can the examples be in Spanish? That's actually a little bit of a tricky one right now. I think there's an executive order that would prevent us from producing Spanish language products through this. I would have to double check that.
And I know there's a question, are there any national parks in the Western US that are included in the program? And the program is focused on national parks in the Northeastern region for now. Hopefully, hopefully maybe expand as the program progresses.
Yes, Brian, where are we on that?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
This has been an interesting year for expansion.
So yeah, so that's a great question. We're definitely very Northeast focused because that's where the funding is coming from, folks. But we've had people who've, fellows out West, right? In fact, today we were just talking with somebody who is from California who really enjoyed learning about the flora and fauna of the Eastern, right? ecosystems and working with the National Park Service on the East Coast. So I hope that's not going to be a deterrent to anyone. And definitely, for some of you, you might want to actually welcome the challenge, right? To learn about a whole new world, than you're used to. And for those who are actually from the East Coast, well, this is a chance for you to kind of showcase what you know and where you can go with that information and expertise that you already have.
Yes. It won't hinder the application at all. I know that was the second question. It is welcomed. I know one question just asked again, how many example of past icon products are considered in the application? One is required, but you can submit more than that. I think, Brian, you said 4 to 5.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
actually, I think the question was how much
Oh.
are they weighted, basically, in the review process?
Oh yeah, how much are they considered?
Yeah.
How do we answer that one, Brian? John, you want to chime in on this one?
Nope.
Nope. Oh gosh.
No,
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I would just say, we definitely look at them. We haven't set fixed like percentages of weights for the different criteria. And this, I guess this kind of gets into what does a successful application packet look like? We're really looking for, examples of your creativity and your ability and just some indication that you're going to be successful. So someone who can collaborate, someone who is excited by the opportunity, someone who can benefit from the opportunity, and someone who has at least some past experience doing some science communication. Does that, I'll let others add on.
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, we're not asking to see your these examples to how do I say, evaluate your expertise in SciComm. We're really more looking at them to see does this person come with some ideas, does this person come with some experience, right? Because we also don't want anybody with no experience, right? We want it because that if that happens, then the whole training is completely different, right? So we felt that the happy medium is with some experience, but not necessarily with expert experience, if you know what I mean. And so looking at the samples, we are hoping to get a sense of that. And again, we are looking for creativity more so than a polished work, right? So yeah, some new ideas. So hopefully that helped to answer the question.
I upvote Teresa's answer.
Jean, you might have actually a comment or two on this. I don't know. I mean, you came in at the, once the fellows are selected, but I don't know if you have any comments from at the point where the fellows first started, maybe, so.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, yeah, I would say, like, for example, this year, all the fellows we selected had some experience, but the experience really varied. And I would imagine that the SciComm products are really part of like and this might lead into the next question as well, of it's one piece of the pie that we look at, right? In addition to what are some of the other answers to the different questions. But for myself, like I work with the fellows kind of once you've made it through the application process, and I can say the folks who came in were exactly like Teresa said, like they're people who kind of had ideas, were willing to take initiative. And also I would say something I noticed where like themes of creativity, which maybe is a given, but like willingness to kind of look at an idea and then see it from different perspectives and offer alternative ideas. So just to be someone who looks at something from all sides and making sure that's demonstrated in the application.
Yeah, so it would really help if you provided a bit of context for the samples that you do submit, right? If you just submitted a thing and we don't know anything about the background of that could hurt you. So because we don't know, right? We can't read your minds. We don't know where that came from. So yeah, so I think we did encourage, like have a little paragraph or so to describe what this is all about, who was it intended for, that sort of thing. And that would really help us and help you.
So we have another.
Oh, sorry, Mary,
Go
just
ahead, Jashit. No, you're
one more thought. The final thought I'll add is it's 2025, so demonstrate intentionality with diverse audiences and showing us like how you really care about the different populations that are a part of this country and this place, because we really want to make sure that when we develop these products, they are accessible to a wide variety of audiences.
I see one question about if you need to submit multiple applications for multiple projects. And no, I think in the application you select your preference of the project based on the description you can read on the website.
Yeah,
So one application.
that's right. One application, don't submit
Yeah.
multiple applications, please. And we really need you to select the top two projects because, we are, wanting to see where you would fit best, right? Which project you would fit best. So actually, that's a good point. Maybe I should bring this up. As part of the review process, we have an internal review with the team here that you see. And then also the National Park Service sites that submitted the project descriptions will have a final we'll have a review as well. We'll suggest candidates to them and they will have a say. So that's also something to keep in mind, and which is why is and sometimes we might look at so if you have two projects, right, then we can potentially send it to more than one a site for consideration. So we have done that in the past. So yeah, but please don't do another application to submit 3 or 4 sites. That would be too much.
We had questions about funding, if there's any concerns around it for the program.
There's always concerns, guys. You all know it. So yeah. So no guarantees, but as far as we can, as far as we have the funding, we will do this.
We have another question about the products. Do example products have to be visual or can they be descriptive, like development of education programs at nature centers?
Brian?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to like read this question. I think it's going to depend, again, so much is going to depend on the specific project and what you work out with your liaison. I'm not completely sure I understand what you mean by descriptive here, Juliana.
So I would say in the bigger scheme, the grander scheme of things, I know the National Park Service wants everything under the sun, okay? And that might be even a manual of some sort, for park managers or some such, which could be very descriptive, right? But you have to basically, I would suggest that you look at the project descriptions that we do have currently and what are they asking for. That will give you the clue to what kinds of products are being sought after. Hope that helps.
Someone asked I'm assuming for the application, may we submit fake science communication products such as flyers, articles, or policy memos made for class?
Yeah, I guess so, right? I wouldn't call that fake. I suppose maybe you're saying well, hopefully it's authentic no matter what, but maybe it hasn't been it's not released to be used, and that would be fine, but just don't make up a site, I suppose, or something like that if you can
I
help
guess
it.
like assignments, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be fine. Yeah.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think that's fine.
Okay.
A question asked, are there other concerns or limits that have been created for this program because of the current administration or executive orders?
Glad you're here on the call, Brian.
Way to put me on the spot on a recorded line. This program has to comply with executive orders.
Yes.
So we will work within the current administration's requirements.
Another question about the application, is it appropriate to submit science communication project examples that were created as part of the team?
If you do, you should be clear about what your contribution was.
Yes, the recording of the session will be available to everyone after. Oh, yeah, thank you, John. I just saw that you were responding to that.
So I would also add that if you want to do that, maybe also submit another example of something that you've done on your own, right? Don't let that be the only thing that you've submitted, and then we're not completely sure, to what degree you have actually done the work for that particular collaborative project.
Can in-process projects be submitted if some of the materials are complete?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would say 100%. Because it's it gets into that like what's like the what you can do. So if you have something that can demonstrate that what you can do, then go ahead and send it in. If like oh we're still waiting for revisions from the client, like we don't know that and we don't need to know that. It's more like this is an example of what you actually bring to the table.
And there was a question on can examples that haven't been published or displayed publicly and aren't a part of a class project, but a personal project be submitted?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Totally.
We saw some of that last year for sure. And some
Yep,
of that was
totally.
really interesting.
All right. There was a question if items cannot be made in other languages, what are ways to cater to diverse audiences with this project? Is it just accessibility in terms of disability?
Take this one. Yeah, so I think one thing, it's a really, really great question. And I think it's very thoughtful considering some of the sensitivities that might be present at this time. I would say, like when I think of, for example, the Universal Design for Learning, which is an educational framework that supports people with different literacy, different ways of visualizing interpretation, different ways of expressing information. Those are things that we can still implement, right? So, for example, it might be things like, offering definitions, offering visual accompaniments to a written description. So, what we would probably get creative about like what's an audience that like you really want to make sure has access to this, and that might be something that you and I talk about of like okay, like what are different strategies we can use to support the learning of people who have different levels of access to the material. But definitely appreciate you bringing that up. I think it's not just in terms of like differing abilities and learning needs, but also uh, like cultural context. I would want to take all of that into account. Thank you.
And if anyone has any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat or feel free to raise your hand and ask your question directly.
Yeah, you all are asking really great questions. So, yeah. No, no more?
All right. Last call, last call.
Well, certainly feel free to ask at any time, right? Even after this session is over, and if you have additional questions that you've thought of, you have our email. Mary Jo, you want to put it in the post in the
Yeah,
chat?
of course.
Okay. Yep, and this recording will be available. But yeah, feel free to contact us anytime.
And thank
Yes.
you everyone for attending today.
Yeah, thank
So,
you. Thank
so
you, everyone.
Brianna, yes, if again, so she asked about a geodatabase project.
Thank you.
Yes, if any documents that are too big, definitely send us a link to where it sits, right? So again, whether it's a video or something like that, yeah, totally. Don't try to upload. Don't jam our systems, please. My webmaster will be very mad at me. All right, thank you all so
All right.
much,
Thank you for attending, everyone.
Thanks
and good
Have
everyone.
a good
luck.
rest of your day.
And yeah, have a great summer too. All right. Okay.